Tesla up almost $100 in 24 hours because of a Wedbush upgrade. And so we wanted to dive into the why Tesla is up question, given that it was down pretty heavily for several days. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the channel, please take time to like and subscribe. So, I want to start off today's show with a question that was posed. Kathy Woods from ARC gave Tesla a $3,000 price target maybe 5 or 6 business days ago. Initially, the stock price was up, and then it dove with the rest of the market. And so one of our viewers had asked the question, what about the whole concept of the 3-day rule as it might apply to Kathy Woods' comments? And so my response I gave initially was that her statements about Tesla's target stock prices usually are not received in the same manner as they are by what's called a buy-side analyst, like the folks at Wedbush and some of the other firms that have given Tesla upgrades. So I wanted to explore this more broadly than just the fact that Tesla got a nice upgrade and sort of dive into this question. So when Kathy makes her statements, her target for a $3,000 price target on Tesla was at 2025 was her target. The numbers, so her frame tends to be a longer period, and as she's making statements, it typically major league affects things relative to long-term investors and is not perhaps designed or focused on the shorter term, i.e. a few days, a month, a quarter. That's not necessarily the target. I think that's one of the reasons why there will be movement when she makes announcements, but it tends to be more powerful to have somebody like a Wedbush make a statement about Tesla. In today's case, what Wedbush pointed out is that 170,000 is the target for the number of vehicles Tesla is supposed to have produced for this quarter. And their argument is that Tesla is going to exceed that number. So, as you may recall, yesterday, Tesla's stock price was down, I believe, to a low of 592. And then all of a sudden, the stock price started accelerating from there nicely into the 630s, and then all the way up to the today it was over $660. So it's sort of pushing towards that 100-point up that I told you about. What's interesting here is that I think that the goal of the numbers that they target 950 as a price point is a little bit on the conservative side, and there's one reason, and that is that we've shown you a video, and we'll show it again today, that if you look at all the service facilities and you look at production in Fremont, what we're seeing right now is something like an 80% order focus on Model Ys. Now, this is an interesting situation because if in fact the numbers that we've been seeing are confirmed, not only will you have an exceeding of the target numbers for sales and therefore the revenue from that, but I believe what's big is that the Model Ys tend to cost at least $3,000 more than the predominant sales were being done with Model 3s. So I therefore think that when you add China's Model Ys to the US Model Ys that are going to Europe and the United States, we end up with somewhat of a blockbuster. My first reaction when I saw the numbers yesterday, I was thinking, okay, somebody knows something that others don't, hence the rise in the stock price suddenly. My sort of prediction was there were 2 possibilities. Number one was somebody had actually seen the numbers from Tesla early to this point in the quarter, and therefore we were going to see some big numbers, and they knew it, and therefore they could report it and other people couldn't. Another variable here in our minds is that when you're a large hedge fund or a major analyst entity, you now have the resources to literally have people sit in a chair and just count how many cars are being picked up and delivered from the factory in the United States at least, and that's possible anywhere, including that's a possibility for what they're doing in China as well. So it was my sense that, yeah, there was an upgrade, but usually companies like this do not do upgrades unless they have concrete statistics to work from. I remind you of the fact that Goldman Sachs articulated that in the September quarter, they'd had a chance to glance at the numbers related to how many cars had been activated. And so when Goldman did an upgrade, it was based on the fact that they had information that other people didn't, and they were able to leverage that information to better inform their clients. So one other thing to note about a Wedbush versus a Cathie Woods is that Cathie Woods is disseminating information that's designed to partially support, they had base analysis and they wanted to have confirming statistics as they've established positions and maintaining positions in Tesla. When it comes to Wedbush or companies like this, they don't necessarily have a portfolio that's behind them. They've been paid by an institution, be it a hedge fund or a pension fund, directly or indirectly, to provide research. So often what will happen is that these funds will actually source this kind of research from multiple firms to confirm the suspicions and then go from there. So what this brings up is something that folks have been asking about, which is the 3-day rule. And I guess our argument is that, yeah, the 3-day rule should apply here. And the reason is that there's a tight relationship between the analysts that have been paid to produce research and them handing their research over to the institutions. So that's, I think, a very tight working relationship that supports those folks trying to get in before trying to buy the shares after earnings have come out. Another component of this is the fact that there's a process by which this research is disseminated that you might take note of. Notice how the stock price moved like 50 points in a very short period of time after these reports were sent to the institutions that paid for that research. The next day after those institutions have had a chance to trade that, they will actually disseminate it to news organizations based on their sense of improving circumstances for the company, and you've seen the impact on the shares in that process. So I think that it's helpful to understand this process, because as you're doing your investing and trading, you can get more comfortable with how and why the shares are on the move. So I just think that from our analytical point, I just think it's going to be a blockbuster quarter, because the number of vehicles that have been articulated, that 170 that is believed that Tesla's going to exceed, does not give you a mix of what is out there. And I just think that from what we're seeing at our service centers, the numbers suggest that a lot of Model Ys are being sold, and therefore the price that people are getting, or the revenue Tesla's getting from each vehicle, is higher, and in theory profit should be higher than expected as well. So I think the triple whammy of better numbers, better revenue number than expected, and better earnings based on the better revenue number, I think that triple threat presents the possibility that Tesla's going to have some terrific numbers next week. The next thing I wanted to review here is just the fact that investing/trading in Tesla can be difficult, because usually large companies like Tesla will get upgrades and you'll see a 1 or 5 or 10 points, or 1 or 2% up or down in the stock price. But because Tesla's information flow tends to be limited, there's a huge amount of waiting of where the stock goes and the price goes after this happens. So I wanted to run this by, because there are all these sort of data moving points that one has to use to figure out, do you invest more or less, sell, buy, hold? All these decisions are being made. And we're kind of in the last 2 weeks before significant information drops, and the company can't say anything because that would violate SEC rules. What is happening, though, is that analysts really control this period So their upgrades or downgrades of the stock are significant and can have a big impact, as you're seeing. What am I expecting? I seriously think that because of how much positive news there was and because of how badly Tesla stock price has been hit, I just think the recovery could be rapid of the stock price, suggesting to me that 700 is a no-brainer, possibly 750 or 800 over the next week or so as we get these numbers coming out from all the other sources, all the sources that generate numbers for Tesla. I think that one thing that we should anticipate is, as usual, Tesla probably isn't going to break down how many of each vehicle sold once those delivery numbers come out. However, I think that from what we're seeing, at least 70, if not 80% of sales currently for Tesla are Model Ys, which is a bigger revenue line item number than what we saw for the Model 3 being the dominant vehicle sold. So I think that I'm excited. I'm thrilled to see the stock price start getting its due after a lot of negative news and an inability of the folks that run the company to actually be able to provide information that would successfully encourage the average investor to buy more Tesla, which I think is a good idea because I think we're in a terrific period for the company currently. So I'm really thinking about doing kind of a course on investing only because, for example, I think that we're in a 3-day rule zone right now, and this is day 1, so we still have 2 more days to go. The way the analysts disseminated the information might affect your ability to ride the entire train, but you can see the stock price moving. And I really think that this means that we kind of have the peak of what we're going to see from Tesla on the 3rd day, which in theory would be Friday of this week, and sort of coinciding with when we're going to actually get the real production numbers. So I would say that because of Mr. Jonas, or not Mr. Jonas, because of the Wedbush statement, I would conclude here that we're in a 3-day rule zone, and we'll find out for sure. Obviously, day 1 was yesterday. The institutions had a chance to review and then start buying before individuals got a chance to look at that information. So now we're in that soon to find out what's going to happen zone. And I think it's going to be very positive for Tesla, and I think it's going to be very explosive. My thought, though, is that I think we're in a rocky period for Tesla, and I think that, as it rises, it's not a bad idea to put some stop losses in if you want to do that. Not a bad idea to sort of hedge yourself in case things turn around and go in the opposite direction of what was expected. At any rate, this is sort of the end of our formal comments regarding Tesla and why the stock price was up. Great upgrade, great news on production from Wedbush, getting support from other analysts. And as you have multiple firms that confirm better than expected numbers, I expect the stock price to do better as well. I next want to move over to our health tips. I'm on a regimen right now proposed by one of the PAs that's a part of our show watching group, and the suggestion was elderberry in the liquid form with zinc, as well as vitamin D and vitamin C as a way to bolster your immune system. And you may want to read up on those 3 items as a way to sort of improve overall health and help protect yourself from some of the issues happening that might include, I'm not saying it's a COVID solution, but it might include helping to ward that off. We have our usual list beyond that of don't forget your 25 leg lifts a day. Don't forget, do not go to bed within 4 hours of eating, minimum 2 to allow the food to digest. Number 3 is, if you're going to do lovemaking, a small salad is a good idea to allow blood flow to not just be concentrated on the meal, it'll be available for other activities. Number 4, you may want to consider the 5-2, one of the other diets that are out there. I mentioned the 5-2 And the doctors we surveyed, about 60 to 70% of them were doing some kind of a fasting diet. The easiest ones for me to remember was that one of the doctors suggested that you eat on one 12-hour side of the calendar and not on the other, is one idea of a fast that he does regularly. And so basically you would eat, let's say, between 8 in the morning and 12 hours later from that, and then not on the other half of the calendar as a fast method. Another method that was recommended by an NIH doctor we talked with is he actually does liquids in the morning and no food until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then he'll eat dinner around 7 o'clock with his family. And so that's perhaps another method you could use. There are a number of them out there, but you may want to try them. In addition to this portion of our health tips is that it was really recommended by our PA doctor that you're encouraged to avoid, so if you allow 4 hours before you go to bed, it gives your body an opportunity to recover in a way it won't if it's still working on digesting food in those hours. So I want to encourage you to consider trying out something like this to see how do you feel in the morning. Do you feel better based on not having the food to digest while you're sleeping? It's going to help you on acid reflux and potentially upper respiratory cancer issues as well. So I think it might be something that would be worth your time to consider. At any rate, congrats if you're a long-term holder of Tesla right now. We look forward to some big things over the next few days with the new production numbers. Please take time to like and subscribe. Join us on Patreon. I also wanted to encourage you to consider some other ideas. The other thought is that we have a community of very, very smart people, including yourself, that are watching our show, and your input is always appreciated. We may not be perfect on our data, but we enjoy the dialogue because we all learn in the process of contribution from everyone, and we look forward to your contribution. So have a great day. Tschüss, au revoir, lehitraot, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, Ni hao ma, Chinese, Konbanwa, Japanese, Hey do, Swedish, Namaste, Hindi, Zdravstvuyte, Russian, and Good day, Australia. And in Jamaica we say, enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for your time, have a great day, and bye for now.